Hello and welcome to this webinar on what has changed in Chesar 3.6. My name is Roberta Bernasconi and I work for the Exposure and Supply Chain Unit here at ECA. From today's webinar, you will learn about the changes implemented in Chesar 3.6. You will become more familiar with Chesar thanks to a demo illustrating the main implementations, and to conclude, you will get the key messages and tips. If you have any questions related to the presentation and Chesar 3.6, please use the opportunity to ask them via Slido at any time during the webinar and until 1 p.m. Helsinki time. We will try to answer to as many questions as possible. However, if your question is not answered by the end of the webinar, submit it again through the ECA contact form. You will also find a link from the Chesar website support page. Good to know is that this webinar is recorded and it will be also published on the ECA website webinar dedicated pages. And now let's have a look a bit more in detail on what this webinar will be about. After this short introduction, we will have a look at what has changed in Chesar 3.6. We will have a demo of Chesar and some concluding remarks. Then, of course, during the full time of the webinar, in the webinar itself, we've been open for the questions. Let's then immediately start to understand which are the major changes implemented in Chesar 3.6. Basically, what has changed mainly in Chesar 3.6 is the implementation of the harmonized worker condition of use. As all other Chesar release, other smaller improvements on the usability of the tool, as well as some few fixes, have been implemented as well. But before discovering what has been implemented in Chesar, let's make a step back and summarize what has been done in the context of the harmonized worker condition of use. The input parameters for the different worker exposure tools are largely addressing the same core exposure determinants, which we call condition of use. But unfortunately, they are expressed with different words and granularity. All of this reflects in a significant challenge for an efficient communication and processing of the information on conditions of use up and down the supply chain. Therefore, under the NS umbrella, there were some tasks to map the input parameters used for the most used worker exposure assessment tools in order to derive one single set of harmonized conditions of use supporting assessment with any tool. So some work has been done with some estimation tool owners, and in particular with ESETOC-TRA, ART, Stoffer Manager, MIS, EMKG Expo tool. The work that have been done with them was to map all the input parameters of each tool, leading to an harmonized list of condition of use, containing for each one an harmonized value that in Chesar we indicate as a pick list entry, an harmonized phrase for communication per each value, so per pick list entry, and the equivalent input parameter for each tool per harmonized value. So let's take an example for the condition of use room ventilation. In this table, there is a list of harmonized value and communication, which are marked in blue. With a white background instead, there are the inputs for all other tools. Let's have a look at one of the entries. For example, this the harmonized value enhanced 5 to 10 ACH. That as harmonized communication provide a good standard of controlled ventilation, 5 to 10 air exchange per hour. As you can see, this harmonized communication is covering basically the full list of inputs that are coming from the different exposure tools. So for example, art, the input for art was 10 air change per hour. For software manager, general ventilation mechanical, SETOC TRA enhanced general ventilation, and MEAS mechanical ventilation at least 3 air change per hour. So the wording of the 4 different exposure estimation tools is quite different from each other, and therefore the mapping has been done in order to harmonize all of them. So as a result of the work done with the exposure tool owners, we have the list of harmonized condition of use, which contains 4 sets of condition of use. The core condition of use, the common to other tool condition of use, the MEAS specific condition of use, and the art specific condition of use. All those harmonized condition of use, part of those 4 sets, are now available in Chesar 3.6 library as built-in condition of use and are now included in the SWED template as well. So let's have a look a bit more in detail of what those condition of use are. So the core condition of use are the ones relevant for all the tools and are the ones that are sufficient for performing an assessment with SETOC TRA. I'm not going to read the full list of condition of use, but I wanted to point out the fact that only 3 among all of them were not changed compared to Chesar 3.5. So this means that the wording of the condition of use or the values has been changed. The second list of condition of use is the one common to the other tool condition of use, other with respect of the SETOC TRA, which means that are relevant for art, MEAS, software manager, and MG. Then we have the MEAS specific condition of use, and finally, the art specific condition of use. For those ones, we have also some specific condition of use which are linked to the art activity class. So in this case, as an example, we put the selection of the activity class fracturing and abrasion of solid objects, for which the 2 additional conditions of use are added. And now let's see how all of this has been implemented in Chesar. So in Chesar, the main changes have been done to the box 6, in particular the condition of use tab, in which you will see an increased list of built-in condition of use. Then we have some changes in the box 3 TRA assessment, in which the condition of use are updated and the relevant TRA values are now marked in bold. And then for still on the box 3, some other changes have been performed on the external tool assessment when art, MEAS, software manager, and EMKG are selected. Because upon selection of one of these mentioned tools, the condition of use linked to the specific tool are added in one single go. So, and now let's have a look at what will happen to your assessment in case you want to use a SWED. If you would like to use a SWED in a TRA assessment, then if these SWEDs contain non-TRA relevant values, so something like a different from a bold entry, TRA will run, if possible, with the closest TRA options, which means the options with a lower reduction factor, but the communication will be based on the SWED value. Remember that all the non-relevant TRA values, if contained in a SWED, will not be taken part for the calculation by TRA, but they will be still communicated. For an external tool, so if you want to use a SWED in an external tool to allow a proper reporting, this SWED should contain all the relevant tool-specific condition of use. And now let's have a look at what will be the implication during the migration between Chesar 3.5 and Chesar 3.6. For TRA assessments, no changes are done to the estimates. No actions are needed from the users, and all the core, which are the ones sufficient for ESETOC TRA condition of use, will be automatically migrated. Of course, there will be an addition of the missing core condition of use, if any, with the default value selected. If you have to migrate instead external tool assessments, what will happen is that, first of all, you will not have any changes in the estimates. Then all core condition of use will be automatically migrated. And there will be the addition of the missing condition of use with the default value selected, as for the TRA. For the ART, MES, Stoffer Manager, and EMKG, the tool-specific condition of use can be added when the user clicks a specific button that you will see during the demo of Chesar 3.6. The migration of the assessment made by 3.5 and having a use map will be slightly different because all the migrated sweats will be set to the obsolete in box 6. And when you will open your box 3 assessment with that sweat, also in the assessment, this sweat will appear as being obsoleted. Obsoleted sweat will remain in any case linked to the contributing scenario. So you will not have any problem because the link will be maintained. However, if the sweat is part of a use map, the user will just need to import the updated version of the use map. The sweat-based worker scenarios will contain then, after the updates of the use map, the link to the active sweats. So, for assessor using systematically external tool, we suggest to use the update by functionalities, which is available in the box 6 of Chesar. We suggest that because probably in case you used systematically the external tool, you have probably created some custom condition of use. To avoid any problem, the best would be to associate a custom condition of use, the one that you created, with a one already defined for the tool, the external tool that you have used. To be clearer, I have this slide with some screenshots to clarify the situation. The update by functionality in each condition of use is available in box 6. Check that a built-in condition of use corresponding to your custom condition of use is available. Select the built-in one and associate the custom one, as it is represented in the screenshot below. Remember to save the built-in condition of use. Once this association is done, in box 3, the specific custom condition of use that you have associated to the built-in one will be displayed in italic, so in a slightly different way, and we'll have a little new icon, the update icon, in all your scenarios. What you will have to do in order to change and to update this condition of use is to click on the update icon, and the built-in condition of use will be displayed at its place. Be careful that the assessor will need to check whether it will be possible to update each custom condition of use, because it has to be the same type of the built-in, the same exposure scenario subheadings, and the same exposure routes covered. Having said that, we can summarize the table. We can summarize the migration by checking this table. So for all the assessment done with ESETOC TRA, Basically, all the condition of use will be automatically migrated. If the SWED is linked, then it will be preserved, and there will be no user intervention to be done. For any assessment based on SWED as part of the use map, the SWED will be maintained in the scenario. The SWED will be linked, but unfortunately, this SWED will be marked as obsolete until you will update your SWEDs with the new version of the use map. For the measured data and the external tool, which are equal to risk of term, ECPA, and other, so that the ones that were not part of this harmonized work, the core plus the custom condition of use will be maintained. The SWED will be linked, of course, if present, and there will be no user intervention to be done. What is happening instead, if I have the external tool equal to software manager, ART, MES, EMKG in a non-SWED based assessment, I will have that the core and the custom condition of use will be maintained. And then I will have to perform some extra actions. As a first thing, if possible, I can use the update by functionality in order to fix all my custom condition of use. And then once this step has been done, I can reset the relevant default condition of use in order to get the complete list of harmonized condition of use. As a last step, in this case, I need also to check for redundancy in case some of the custom condition of use are redundant, or if something has to be cleaned up in the assessment. For the same external tool, Software Manager, ART, MES, EMKG, in a SWED-based assessment, again, the SWED will be will be linked, but I will need to have the update of the new the update of the use map version to get the automatic SWED update. Okay, and now let's move to the other smaller improvement and fixes of Chesar 3.6. First of all, we maintain the compatibility between Chesar 3.6 and the Euclid 6.4 and 6.5 newly released. Then in box 1, we have new hyperlinks in substances and CSAs so that it will be easier to select both substances and CSA, as well as the use map in case of a need. Then in box 4, we did some changes in order to have a better communication and a better transfer of the information of the CSR to Euclid, so that when generating the full CSR with the creation of a record in section 13.1, the full CSR in PDF or RTF format can be directly attached, as well as the Chesar 3.6 reports. And now with the Chesar 3.6, the CSR part A, the declarations, can be directly entered in Chesar in the CSR generation pop-up window. And of course, the full documentation, so the help text, the user and installation manuals have been reviewed and updated. And now I'm happy to give the floor to Eleni Tsitsiou for the demo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eleni Tsitsiou, and I work in the Exposure and Supply Unit in the European Chemicals Agency. During this part of the webinar, I will show you the key features implemented in the new release of Chesar. Let's have a look at Chesar 3.6. To begin with, I have imported 2 substances from Euclid, as you can see by checking the information in the source column in the search result table. Some minor changes have been introduced at substance, CSA, and use map level in box 1. A substance can be selected either by clicking on the Select button or by clicking on its chemical name. The selected substance is now displayed in bold in the search result table. A CSA can now be selected by clicking on its name, and it can be edited by clicking on the Edit button. The same applies for use maps prepared by use map developers. The major changes introduced in Chesar 3.6 can be found in box 6, which is called Chesar library, or in box 3, where the exposure assessment takes place. So let's continue with the changes in box 6. In box 6, the changes occur both in the Condition of Use template tab and in the Sweat tab. As the changes in the Sweat tab are relevant for the use map developers, they will not be presented in this webinar. However, I would like to briefly mention that new fields have been added to help the use map developers to easily create sweats covering assessments with ART, MIS, Stoffen Manager, and EMKG Expo tool. Now, let's check in detail the changes in the Condition of Use template tabs. As you may have noticed, the number of the built-in Condition of Use has increased. This is because the Chesar library has been expanded to include also the conditions of use that are needed for the ART, Stoffen Manager, MIS, and EMKG exposure estimation tool. So let's search for the Stoffen Manager specific conditions of use. By opening, for instance, the first condition of use template, we can confirm that this condition of use is indeed relevant for Stoffen Manager. How? By checking the information in the relevant for exposure estimation tool field. As you can see, this condition of use is relevant not only for Stoffen Manager, but also for ART, MIS, and EMKG tool. The same check can be done for all harmonized conditions of use. For all harmonized conditions of use, a default option has been specified, as well as harmonized default description for communicator per condition of use option. Now, let's have a look at the changes in box 3, where the exposure assessment takes place. For my first example, I use PROC 3. So, what's new in this box? Firstly, we see that by default, all conditions of use relevant for TRA are displayed in the condition of use section. Then we display the values of conditions of use which have a pick list either in bold or normal font. And let's take a look at the room ventilation condition of use. The values in bold refer to inputs that have a direct mapping to TRA, whereas the values displayed in normal font cannot be directly mapped to a TRA value. But what will happen in a TRA assessment when a value in normal font has been selected? In order to show you this, I will add a TRA dataset, and I will set the room ventilation to a normal font value, and in particular, the specialized. Then I will save my dataset. If a value in normal font is selected, then TRA runs using the closest TRA value when possible. In this case, an informative message explaining which value has been used for the TRA calculation is displayed when clicking on the Exposure Estimates Information button. Now Chesar informs me that TRA worker predicts exposure as if the room ventilation were set to enhance. Let's assume now that an assessor wants to base the exposure estimates on an external tool, and in particular on ART. For the next example, I will select PROC 8A. So the assessor has to proceed as follows. First, he has to add an external tool and enter the external tool information. Upon selecting the external tool, a message is displayed reminding the user to add the tool-specific condition of use by clicking on the relevant button. Next, the assessor has to provide the exposure estimates as generated by the ART tool. The next step is to select the relevant activity class. In this case, I will select the following liquids. Then, following the advice mentioned in the informative message that was previously displayed, the assessor should click on the Reset Relevant Default Condition of Use button. This button triggers the automatic addition and linking of default conditions of use that are relevant to the selected tool. The last step for the assessor is to set the right condition of use option, as the default ones are automatically selected, and to delete any condition of use that is not relevant to the scenario, if any. In this case, I will delete the suppression techniques for solid products because my product in this case is a liquid. And I save the assessment. Now, I would like to briefly show you what would happen upon migration from Chesar 3.5. To do so, I will change CSA and I will select the one imported from Chesar 3.5, which contains also a small invented use map. Now, let's start with the migration of a TRA assessment. In most of the cases, no actions are needed by the users for migrating TRA assessments. All conditions of use have been migrated to display the updated harmonized conditions of use options. In case the condition of use in a contributing scenario part of the use map were based on a SWED, then the following would happen upon migration. We can see that the dataset is maintained and that the conditions of use have been updated to their harmonized values. But we can also see that the SWED is now set to obsolete, and this is indicated by checking the SWED information, which is now displayed in italic font. So all SWEDs coming from previous Chesar versions are automatically set to obsolete in Chesar 3.6. So the assessor should download the updated usemap ch3 file and import it into Chesar 3.6. I have prepared an update of my invented usemap, and now I'm going to import it into my Chesar 3.6. In this way, all the SWED-based contributing scenarios in the usemap will contain links to active SWEDs, and this can be confirmed by checking the SWED information, which is now displayed in normal font. And what would happen if you had an ART assessment in Chesar 3.5 and then you migrate to Chesar 3.6? For this example, we will use PROC 8a. So, as we can see, the ART dataset and the TRA dataset have been both maintained. Then, both built-in and custom conditions of use have been migrated, and for built-in conditions of use, they have been updated as well. Then the user is advised to open the ART dataset, provide an ART activity class, and add the default conditions of use relevant to this tool, as was shown before by clicking on the Reset Relevant Default Condition of Use button. The last step for the assessor in this case is to clean the user-specific conditions of use that are no longer needed. This brings me to the end of this demo. Thank you for your attention. I will now give the floor back to my colleague Roberta for some concluding remarks.
To end the webinar, I will go through some concluding remarks and key messages. So for all users, the main key messages are: first, Chesar 3.6 implements the set of harmonized workers' condition of use, which means that now Chesar has an increased list of built-in condition of use serving ESA.TRA, Stoffe Manager, ART, MEIS, and EMKG. No dataset will be lost during the migration. The sectors have worked hard to publish an update of the use map, available in Chesar format. And this can be downloaded, all the use map can be downloaded from the use map library web pages in ECHA website. We recommend you to download the updated version of the use map that you have used for your assessment and update your Chesar 3.6 from the box to update use map. The key messages for the assessors who have systematically used the external tool is that, first of all, we recommend to use the harmonized built-in condition of use. But before doing that, you need to remember to check if it will be possible to update your custom condition of use by using the Update by functionality in box 6. More information as well as the limitation of this Update by functionalities are available in the Chesar release note document. And finally, you should not forget to download the new Chesar 3.6 from the Chesar website, to read carefully the release note document, still available in the Chesar website, to open the contextual help inside the application by clicking the orange question mark at any place in Chesar. Download the updated use map from the use map library webpage. Check the documentation on workers' harmonized condition of use that has been published in the ECHA ANS webpage. Check your assessment after migration so that you ensure that no changes or that some changes need to be performed in case of external tool assessment. And of course, as usual, contact us if needed through our web form. The webinar is open until 1 o'clock Helsinki time to answer your questions. And as I said already before, if your question is not answered, then please enter it in our contact form at ECHA Europa EU/contact. Thank you very much.